Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm joined also here this morning by John Bennett, the Special Agent in charge of the San Francisco Field Office for the FBI, our law enforcement partner in this matter. This morning we are announcing the criminal indictment of defendant Anthony Scott Levandowski for trade secret theft in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Sections 1832, 1834, and 2323. As alleged in the indictment, Levandowski was a high-ranking Google executive with a responsibility for a major engineering team within Google's self-driving car project called Project Chauffeur. On January 27th, 2016, Levandowski resigned from Google without prior notice to Google. The indictment alleges that Levandowski made the decision to leave Google no later than September 2015, and that he used the time between September 2015 and January 27, 2016 to remove thousands of files from Google. Just weeks after his resignation from Google, in February 2016, Levandowski signed a term sheet with Uber, a company that was investing heavily in its own self-driving car program. A forensic investigation revealed that on or about December 11th, 2015, Levandowski downloaded to his Google computer approximately 14,000 Google files, including critical engineering information about the Project Chauffeur, schematics, other engineering drawings. Approximately 3 days after that download to the Google computer, on December 14th, 2015, Levandowski transferred those files to his personal laptop. Levandowski downloaded additional files directly to his personal laptop on other dates, including internal tracking documents setting forth the technical goals for the various engineering teams within Google's Project Chauffeur. The indictment alleges trade secret theft in 33 specific counts, corresponding to 33 specific downloads. The indictment alleges that each of these trade secrets was reasonably protected by Google, had economic value, and was not generally known. The indictment also contains a criminal forfeiture count. I want to note that the indictment contains allegations. The indictment is not proof. Levandowski is presumed innocent. The statutory maximum sentence for each count of trade secret theft is 10 years imprisonment and a fine of $250,000. However, any sentencing following conviction would be imposed and determined by the court. I'm going to ask Mr. Bennett to make comments as well, and then I'll return to the podium and be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning. A few brief comments here. Obviously, the FBI has been investigating this case since May of 2017. The tech industry in the Bay Area, as everybody knows, is the emerging industry of some of the most disruptive technology on the globe. The Bay Area has the best and brightest engineers and designers, and they take big risks, and they invest a lot of money, and they disrupt the market over and over again. But this is not. But Silicon Valley is not the Wild West. The fast-paced and competitive environment does not mean federal laws don't apply or they can be ignored. The FBI will not tolerate the theft of trade secrets, and I want to be clear on what we consider trade secrets. These are the crown jewels of companies. These are heavily protected, confidential information, and accessible on a need-to-know basis. Proprietary information that takes years of research and development at significant expense to these companies. Again, the crown jewels of these companies. We have seen individuals, other companies, and even nation states steal secrets from our companies unlawfully to obtain a competitive advantage. We're seeing people breaking into companies, accessing trade secrets, and literally walking out the front door. In this case, we have the allegation of an insider stealing information from a company's servers. And that includes the development of self-driving vehicles and all the underlying research, planning, technology that goes into it. This makes for a very tasty theft. The FBI will not stand by and let people steal protected trade secrets in an attempt to unlawfully get ahead. This causes chaos in businesses, our jobs, and the economic futures. White-collar investigations remain a top priority in the FBI. In cases like this, we're talking about the loss of millions and even billions of dollars, and sometimes at the expense of a company going under and not existing anymore. The theft of a company's trade secrets hurts the economy, it affects local jobs, and it impacts consumers throughout the country and the world. This investigation has been very complex. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and we're not going to give a lot of details because it is continuing to be an ongoing investigation. I'd like to thank all the FBI crew that's been involved in this, the agents, the analysts, have done a remarkable job over the course of 2 years. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the U.S. Attorney's Office and the prosecutors that stand by our shoulders night and day and work really tough hours to get these cases right. These are the cases that really matter, and these are the cases that the FBI will continue to stand in the breach to make sure that our economy and our companies have the ability to compete fairly on the world platform. Thank you very much, Dave. I'll let you take some questions.
As the questions come in, if you could please just identify yourselves and the outlet that you're from, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Joel Rosenblatt from Bloomberg News. This case was litigated in the civil context. Waymo had trouble proving that these were in fact trade secrets. Can you talk about that? And I assume the bar is higher in a criminal case.
So I won't directly comment on the proof or progress of the civil case. I can tell you that in the criminal case, the elements as alleged in the indictment are elements that were shown to the satisfaction of the grand jury, obviously that returned the indictment, and we intend to prove at trial.
Dan Simon with CNN. Are there any other individuals who are currently being investigated? Do you anticipate any more arrests?
So as Mr. Bennett noted, the investigation is ongoing. According to DOJ policy, we would not announce the names of persons who are within the scope of that investigation in advance of indictment. Today, the indictment is against Levandowski as described.
Bruce Farber from NBC News. I just wanted to find out what the status of the ongoing criminal probe by DOJ of Uber itself, and how that relates to this case at all. And just a second question, where is Mr. Levandowski being held currently?
So thanks. Speaking first about the possibility of other investigations, I'm going to focus my comments today on the indictment announcement that we've made. If there's other subjects, and I should say this generally, if there's other subjects that folks want to follow up with our office about, you're welcome to do that. Please do that with Mr. Simmons, our press officer. Mr. Levandowski is scheduled to appear this afternoon in magistrate court at 1:30 for his arraignment. And that's the information I have to release on that point.
Was Mr. Levandowski taken into custody, or is he free?
Mr. Levandowski was allowed to self-surrender in cooperation with his defense attorneys. Of which now? No, my comments are focused on the indictment. I should point out, though, that he was permitted to self-surrender, so I don't want to suggest that there was more there than self-surrender.
Michael, does Uber face any liability?
The indictment is a charge against Levandowski. The indictment is not a charge against Uber. Both Uber and Google were responsive to my office in response to criminal process, in response to requests for information. Both Uber and Google provided documents and other information in support of the investigation.
Wall Street Journal.
I don't have any information on that. Do you?
Through the forensic analysis, we have files that are of interest.
Hey, Mike Isaac from New York Times. How about any of the partners at Otto, Leo, Ron? How are you all looking at them? Are they named in the indictment? I haven't seen the indictment.
Yeah, and I should also note we have copies of the indictment.
Copies of the indictment in the back.
Yep, and should also be coming up on ECF. So the only defendant named in the indictment is Levandowski, and other than noting generally, as Mr. Bennett did, that the investigation continues, we have no further comment about any particular individual.
What is his age?
Pardon?
His age?
I don't have that. Do you have that? You might have that.
Justin Garrett from here in the Bay Area. Do you have any reason to believe anyone else other than Lewandowski is involved in this, as in maybe he passed on these secrets beyond just Uber to some other actors?
Again, I wouldn't speculate about the possibility of other charges other than just to note that the investigation continues.
It took a while. I mean, I think it's safe to say some people have even kind of maybe forgotten about Anthony Levandowski. Can you explain what took so long? I understand they're complicated, but any details about what was involved?
I think what I would say generally is that civil and criminal cases each move out at their own pace, and sometimes one will be faster than the other. We charged this case when we felt it was ready to be charged, and I wouldn't have any details to release to you about the progress of the investigation or the means or manner of the investigation. My comments today are focused on the announcement of the charges, and then I'm sure other things will come out in the course of the prosecution. Yeah.
Bruce Barber from NBC News. When did he self-surrender and to what agency?
It was this morning, and it was here at the San Jose Federal Courthouse.
So 10 years for count 33 counts, he's facing more than 300 years.
So that's the statutory maximum. They do stack in exactly the way that that you just described, but the sentence will be determined by the court. I don't want to imply that we will be seeking 333 years, although that is a legally permissible sentence upon conviction of all of the counts that are alleged in the indictment.
Perspective in the Bay Area, we know that workers here in Silicon Valley tend to go back and forth between different companies. You say that this has nothing to do with Uber or with Google. Can you talk about what this says to companies as they're trying to recruit talent from other places?
What I would say is that all of us, generally speaking, are free to move from job to job. What we cannot do is stuff our pockets on the way out the door.
Area Crawford with NBC Bay Area, any indication that Uber paid you for this information?
The
Or any compensation from anyone?
The indictment doesn't speak to that directly. There is previous reporting on the various settlement amount paid in the litigation, also the arbitration. That's been previously reported, it's publicly available, but the indictment doesn't speak to it.
Rob Gladwell with FBN News. Was there something, maybe I missed it, was there something that pointed to Mr. Lewandowski to begin with? I mean, was Google aware that these documents had been stolen?
So the indictment alleges that there was a forensic investigation. One of the things that I would point to in response to your question is the timeline here. So the sequence of events is stunning in the speed, the scope, the size of what occurred. As alleged in the indictment, there's an intention that's informed no later than September 2015 to leave Google. Then you have the series of downloads amounting to thousands of files. Then you have the resignation, and then just a few weeks later, you have the signing of the term sheet with Uber. So that's a timeline that certainly is one of the pieces of the indictment.
I'm sorry, so he was employed with Google for 2 years, a year
He was employed with Google going back to, let me just double check the date. He began with Google in 2007, sir. Yeah. Left in 2016. Mhm.
Can you characterize Lewandowski's attitude or surprise by the investigation or the arrest?
I don't have any comment on that.
Two more?
Is there a way to put a ballpark value on the stuff, the value of the stuff?
The indictment does not allege value because value is certainly the existence of value, economic value, is a part of the criminal case, but the specific dollar amount is not a necessary element to be alleged or proved. Now, there's been, as I noted in response to one of the earlier questions, there's been a variety of previous reporting on the settlement amounts that were paid in the civil action and in the arbitration. That might be something that you would look to, but it's not something that speaks directly to the criminal case.
We're talking millions.
The previous reporting is in the hundreds of millions.
Sorry, a quick question on the process. You said he self-surrendered, that was this morning here at the federal courthouse, but he was arrested previous to that at his home, or he was arrested here?
No, he was allowed to bring himself to the courthouse, surrender himself in the company of his defense counsel. This was a courtesy that was extended in the case.
He was not arrested?
It was a self-surrender, so.
Can you tell us what city he's from, where he lives in, besides him?
No,
You know,
okay.
I think we have that identified in the press release that you'll see right in the back.
Last one, yeah.
Yeah.
He's charged, and he's the only person charged. Are you saying you didn't have evidence that Uber knew what he was doing, and that's why that company isn't also facing charges? I guess my question is, why isn't Uber also facing some kind of charges for receiving stolen property? Should they have known?
Yeah, the indictment doesn't speak to that, and the indictment speaks only to the alleged criminal culpability of Lewandowski.
But as far as Uber, is there any reason to believe they should have known?
Again, the indictment doesn't speak to that.
They could face future prosecution in the future, or?
I wouldn't comment on that other than to note that the investigation is ongoing. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Again, we will remain available to you to answer questions. There'll be copies of the indictment in the back. There'll be copies of the press release in the back. Thank you so much for coming.
David, please say